when we are born, we have some number of moments on this earth. Okay. That's moments add up to minutes, and minutes add up to hours, and hours add up to days, and days to weeks, and weeks to months, and months to seasons, and seasons to years, and years to decades. And you add all that up and you got a life, and then you're gone from the earth. So we don't know how many that is. We know on average what it is, but we don't know individually what that is. So it does behoove us to use it well, this thing called time. But the other thing that we have in that bucket of resources that we are born with, we have moments, but we also have energy. We have the energy of the things that are in our heart that matter, the things that are in our minds that we think about and develop and construct, the things that are in our soul that have to do with a whole bunch of good stuff that brings the fabric of life. And then our passions that drive all that, where we're going to apply that in our strength and our engagement. Okay. That's what we get to invest in every moment. That's what you get to invest. Is your heart in it? Or are you spending time doing something your heart's not in? That's not an investment. It's like putting money not in the bank or the mutual fund, but in a cookie jar. It's not invested. It's not, you get anything more than what you started with, and maybe less. So are we investing ourselves in this thing called time? Now, that's why people talk about time management. I think it's by and large, when you really get your head around this, there's no such thing as time management. You can't manage time. Time is what it is. And unless you're on some rocket ship that's kind of tweaking you vis-a-vis the speed of light, it's pretty much going to kind of tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock as it is. So if we're not Einstein in a time machine, it's really hard to bend and manage this thing called time. So when we talk about time management, what are we really talking about? We're talking about me management, because I'm the one that's got to spend the time. I'm the one that's got to invest the time. Better yet, I don't really have time. I am a person and time is. I'm the one that's got to invest me in that time. Today's going to go by. I don't have a day that I can say, I'm going to invest this or not. That in a certain way. I mean, today's Monday. It's going. I can't take the money. I'm going to put it up here over on the shelf, and I'm going to have 8 days next week. I can't do that. The Monday's going to go. How am I going to invest me? So what we're really talking about in time management is ultimately we're talking about, in a certain way of looking at this, we're talking about self-control. You're in charge. And I know there's problems with that statement, but to a great degree, we are in charge of how we spend our time, or better yet, how we invest ourselves in that time. So if you take all that world of time management, I'm going to tell you that there are two different buckets, and we're going to talk briefly just about one of them in the next few minutes. The two buckets are things about you that cause you to invest in time in a not good way, okay? And then there are ways that you utilize and use your time, and methodologies, and let's call those strategies and tools, that are really like kind of like life hacks in a way, that are very, very helpful. What the people that get more out of their time tend to do is different than the people who squander it, just like any other investment. I mean, when you look at, people in their 50s and 60s and beyond that are financially secure, and the research is really clear on this, it's not mostly about income. It's about self-control. and how they managed whatever time, whatever money they had along the way. So those tools are very, very helpful. And we're not going to get into that and tactics and all that because that's a whole. In fact, we're going to do a webinar on time management. You can watch for that in the not too distant future. But what I want to mention quickly is, apart from the tricks and methodologies and strategies of how to get more out of your time, I want to look at some of the motivations that are causing you to spend time in ways that are not going to give you a return. Okay? Let me give you 4 quick ones. Sometimes we spend time on invaluable things just because we may be feeling emotionally isolated or alone. It's not a time management problem. See, a lot of times people are feeling lonely and they'll just go out and do random stuff because they're lonely, kind of to fill up the loneliness. And that would be great if they were doing actual things that cured the emotional isolation, but it doesn't. They might just go, do activity to get away from it. Or they might, at work, instead of getting the stuff done they need to get done, they go hang out and linger at the coffee machine a lot or wherever, just to be around people because they feel isolated. But what's going on in those conversations isn't fulfilling. It wouldn't do the same thing as an hour with a therapist would do, or an hour with a good support group, or an hour with a good friend talking about and processing the deeper things in life. But sometimes people are drawn into just looking for connection and wasting time, right? Hanging around. Why? Because when they go off by themselves, they're lonely. And that's just the facts. Work is lonely for some people. It's not supposed to be that way. But in some people's experience, it is that way because their lives are lonely. All right. So that's one reason. So the next time you find yourself not focusing on what you need to be focusing on to get something done, ask yourself, am I just doing this so I can talk to somebody? Am I just doing this so I can have human connection? And it's great, but is the human connection I'm doing actually solving my loneliness problem, or is it maybe even making it worse? If you're alone and you spend time with somebody and walk away alone, that means the connection didn't really happen. So that's one thing to think about. Number 2, sometimes we end up not doing what we need to be doing because, simply stated, we have very poor boundaries. And people ask and they want things, and we can't say no, or don't say no. Sometimes it's not even experienced as a can't because you never even have the option because it never comes up on the screen. To know you have a conflict with saying no, you've got to try. Now, some people can try and then they can't get the words out. They're going to be mad, or they're going to reject me, or, and they find out they got a problem. But some people are just kind of wired. Oh, sure. And they end up doing way more. And almost because they don't even have an awareness that your time is a finite thing. And once you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. If people ask me to do 5 things, I'm saying no to something I sometimes need to do for myself. And we all have this problem. It's not a bad thing that people ask. It's certainly not a bad thing to do things for people. But if we don't have an off switch, and we can't say, I'd really love to do that for you, but I can't. I've got some things I need to do for me tonight or tomorrow, or, we got some things planned, or, how about this one? No, I can't. What are you doing? You know what? I decided I was just going to take a day and do nothing. I need to rest. So actually, I'm not doing anything, and I need to keep it that way. Try that one. You can get over your guilt meter. That's a pretty good little test there. Okay, so I just want you to look at what your basic boundaries are. The third thing, my dad used to have a saying. we'd be working on some land project or something, and you kind of get it to a certain point, and he used to. Now, my dad was, well, he was really into doing things right that were important, but he also had this saying that I just love. Well, it's good enough for who it's for. It's good enough for who it's for. Meaning, what's the purpose of why we're doing something? And is spending 30 more minutes on it to get it 5 degrees better even needed for the purpose that it's for, the person that it's for? If I'm about to walk down the aisle to get married, I remember spending a little more time on, tying the whatever you're wearing, a tux, or, getting all the wrinkles out or whatever, than if I'm, you know, going to the mall or something. But some people's perfectionism, they'll read an email 15, I've seen this, read it over and over so many times before they can hit send because of their own perfectionism, or they're worried that it's not good enough for somebody else's perfectionism. They can't even think about, oh, somebody's going to look at that. They're just going to think, well, who are we talking about? Are we talking about my future wife at the altar? Yeah, I care what she thinks. But if somebody's going to get nitpicky about something, look, here's what you needed. I sent it to you, deal with it. At some point, there's a continuum there, right? We're not trying to be rude, but come on. Sometimes you can't live your life living up to somebody else's perfectionistic standards.